Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo. What's up, Brody?
We need fireworks. We need like pyrotechnics, like when you say like, "Oh no, it's the Popo."
He was a little delayed in his response. He was a little delayed.
That was you. Your internet was messing up just off the rip. Off the rip. We started a podcast with your jank internet just messing up. What you sipping on right now? Mountain Dew?
This is that juice right here, bro. So Starbucks. Well, let me say, we're also
This is that yak. yak.
We are also joined by the Savage. If you haven't heard him in the background, Mr. Kid and Play. You got my man. Got
what
that.
You know about some yak, Billy?
Oh man, we were joined by the Savage himself.
So before we started recording, I told Billy, I said, Billy, you are easily in my top 3 favorite people in the world, just strictly for his mannerisms.
He just went to number
one.
one.
Exactly why. Like, Billy would say some random stuff you had no idea he knew about. This is my yak, right?
he just went to number 1 now.
What you sipping on?
Man.
First off, you live at Starbucks.
First of all, no, I don't.
You need a Starbucks credit card.
Second
you
of all,
always
I already got one of those. But anyways, second of all, Starbucks got this new drink. I haven't tried it yet. I have not tried it. I'm not so surprisingly, I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't really like coffee like that. So when I go, I usually this is called my kiwi starfruit. And I'll get like the little breakfast sandwich because they got a bomb breakfast sandwich and blueberry muffins.
That double Gouda, whatever.
Double smoked bacon and cheddar, bro.
Oh yeah, that bad boy good.
Yeah. So that's what I get. But they also got a strawberry funnel cake frappuccino, bro. Bro, I saw that.
I'm gonna need to. This is the last episode of the podcast we recorded.
Yeah. Bro, I saw that. I was like, man, oh man.
You're in law enforcement. You should say I get my coffee black. Nothing in it.
Nah, bro.
In a dirty cup.
People
you got
know,
Ryan over here. Like, yeah, give me the pink.
I'm bougie, son.
Give me the pink fufu latte.
I felt like I got
unicorn.
I felt like I got diabetes just looking at the menu though, seeing that, bro. I was like, man, this sounds bomb though. I'm waiting for just a day where I just don't give 2 Fs and just want to try it.
Yeah, it better be a day you have nothing on your schedule because you're gonna be in the bathroom shortly after that.
I know who's gonna be in the bathroom tonight, but we won't talk about that.
Betrayal.
I said that because I'm not gonna put my man on Front Street, but let's just say it involves the bathroom, and it's not like the bathroom like my last episode or my most embarrassing moment. Not like that.
We're going to fill y'all in next episode. That next episode, we're going to fill y'all in on what you're talking about.
But
I have a funny story I'm going to share later on in this podcast, though, man. I was just telling somebody about it.
Just go right
and
now.
He was cracking up.
Let's start off with it. Go ahead and lead with the funny story.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, I feel like I've shared this in the past. Like something I do to like psych myself out of like things that I'm scared of is I financially commit to it, right? So like I'll give you a perfect example. I'm scared of heights, but like a different type of heights, right? So like I could stand on a ladder and I'm fine, but if you put me on like the edge of a roof, like my legs will start to get weak and I'll get like kind of wobbly. So in order to like financially commit to like conquering that fear, I paid a company in Northern Ohio fully paid them to skydive. And I told him, I said, hey, just hold on to this. Like, I'm going to call y'all one day and say I'm coming up. I don't know when that's going to be, but just know that I'm going to do it, right? So that's like an example of what I do. So a couple years ago, keep in mind, I can't swim like that, right? Like, y'all, we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah, we heard about the surfboard story at the theme park.
Exactly. I thought I was drowning right then too, right? So a couple years ago, my buddy called me up and he's like, hey, you want to go white water rafting? And I'm like, I don't. No, I don't. But I'm going to say I do, right? I'm going to financially commit. That way I get past my fear, right? So he's like, we're going to West Virginia. There's a place called the New River. And for those of you West Coasters, you might not know about this, but like the New River is like world renowned for like white water rafting. There's a huge water reservoir and then there's a dam, right? And once a year they open this dam and it creates like class 5 rapids, which are like the world's worst, most intense rapids. And people come from all over the world, literally all over the world, to rock climb and to whitewater raft. So he's like, we're going to do the New River. And I was like, let me do some research. So I do some research. And I was like, I'll do the river. I won't do the gully. So the gully is like the short amount of water that connects the dam to the new river. And that's like the real crazy part, right? He's like, all right, whatever, we'll do that. Long story short, we go down there, we stay in the cabin. The next day we're on a bus and like, we're already like suited up. We got life vests on and whatnot. And the guide's like, you guys ready for the upper gully? Which is the worst part of the worst part, right? Like it's the worst part of the gully. So I'm like, oh, like y'all signed up for the gully. He's like, I didn't want to tell you because I knew you wouldn't do it. I'm like, I can't swim like that, bro. Like
this is where I get off. Y'all keep going.
bro, it's so scary. You have to sign a waiver basically saying like if you die, like no one in your family will sue the company. It's crazy, right? So anyway, I talked myself into getting on the raft. And there's like choppy waters, and I'm a nervous talker, right? So I'm like talking to the guide, who's like this person on the back of this raft.
So how long you been doing this,
really
man?
Long
so how long you been doing this for?
Oh yeah.
How many people have died out here since you've been doing it?
You ever had somebody die on your watch? So anyway, he's got this really long oar. He keeps it in the water and he steers with it, and then we have like these shorter paddles, and he tells us when to paddle, right? So when we first get on, he's like, hey, I guarantee this will be something that you guys have never experienced before. Like, even if you've traveled the world whitewater rafting, you'll never experience something like this. We have 3 world-renowned Class 5 rapids, and I'll tell you before we get to them. So we go through one rapid. He's like, pedal, blah, blah, blah. So then we're coming up to like this calm part of the river or the gully, and it's curving. So he's like, all right, remember I told you guys about like the memories you'll never forget? And we're like, yeah. He's like, it's coming up around this corner. It's our first Class 5. It's called the Widowmaker. And I'm like,
that's crazy.
Time out.
The
Widowmaker. Why is it called the Widowmaker?
Like Black Widowmaker? Or are we talking about losing my life Widowmaker?
I got a wife. I don't know if I should be on this raft right now.
Bruh.
So anyway, we go around the corner and we can't see it yet. But he tells us, he goes, hey, as soon as we hit this rapid, it's going to suck us into a wall. We're going to bang into a wall really hard. It's going to spin us around. We're going to go backwards. Don't panic. We're going to hit a pocket. It's going to suck us all in the middle. I need us all to get down. Hold on to the things. He goes, do not fall. And I'm like, do not, what you mean don't fall? Like, well, what happens if I fall, right? Like, I need to know what happens if I fall. He goes, if you fall, hold your breath as long as you can. You're going to get sucked underwater. You'll pop back up, take a deep breath. You're going to get sucked under again, and then you'll pop up in calm water.
And I'm bound
like,
to drown.
And you can't get out the raft, bro. Like, you can't stop because you're in a gully. Like, it's literally like 2 cliffs, and then it's just like a river in the middle, right? So long story short, man, we go through this thing. As soon as we hit the rock, who goes flying off the raft? Me, right?
Bro,
I'm airborne. I get sucked underwater. I hold my breath. I pop up. They're yelling at me. They're like, swim right, swim right. So I'm like, I can't swim. So all I'm doing is waving my arms, right? I had to get picked up by another raft, right? They picked me up.
Bro, why did we know about this anytime sooner, bro?
I'll share the whole story later, but it's crazy, man. Like, I end up getting saved, and then they pick me up later, and then we go through another Class 5, and our
so you still weren't done yet.
No, bro. Like, our lead guy gets tossed off of our boat, so it's just us. So then we have no idea what's going on, and then I had to take charge, right? Because wasn't nobody else doing it. So I'm like, paddle forward. And then another guy is like yelling from a cliff because like when there's really bad rapids, people line up to watch. Like we gonna see somebody die tonight, right? So those people are yelling like, no, paddle forward. And I'm like, paddle backwards.
Why do I get this vision of AJ like 300, bro? Or like,
man, it was a scary. I'll never do it again, but it was the scariest thing in the world, man. And then our guy pops up out the water. He's like, I almost died, guys. You guys okay? And I'm like, bro, get me off of this. Like, I'll climb up this hill right here. Like, just get me out of this. So, for those of you who have never gone whitewater rafting, don't do it. I don't.
And what we've learned, dude, you need to put your son in swimming classes just so he never since you don't like not knowing, put him in some class. They have infant classes or like toddler classes.
The wife was just talking about that. Yeah. There's like a place down the street from where we live. She's like, I need to get Tristan in some swimming classes. I was like, sold.
For sure. Yeah.
Hey, can I go with you?
On that note,
You're in the classroom.
I got my little floaties on.
Like, oh, you here for your son? No, I'm here for me.
No,
No, it's me. I heard. I'll teach you about to swim, right?
Baby in the pool.
No, I'm here for me. Sir, this is infant. Yeah, I'm here for me.
So I have pictures and some videos. I might send Billy to chop in here so y'all can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that'd be good for the Instagram IG. Hey, on that note, I got a praise report. Anybody that's been listening to the podcast last few episodes, I think it was not the last episode, but the episode before that, when I told you about a friend of ours whose child was found in the pool, not breathing. The baby survived. She survived, and she is doing good.
She's home now.
She is home now. Yeah, she is home now. But that was a crazy. I remember when Kimberly told me about that. So for whoever prayed out there for her and the family, thank you. Your prayers did not go unanswered, and she is. She survived, and so the family's doing well. Actually, we're gonna go give them some lunch today. But so shout out to you guys for doing that, and But yeah, man, it's good to be back, and it was great to celebrate our 100th episode with you guys last week, and cool. I got a lot of great feedback from you guys, a lot of great feedback. Everybody enjoyed it, and it was just really cool to listen back and hear some of the people we've had on the episode in the past, and then also, if you were one of those people, I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Nick Santos, who is also on the podcast. I gotta give him a shout out.
One of the top episodes that we've ever had.
It's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge.
It's gonna be huge.
It was a huge episode.
So Nick,
people tell me it was the biggest. I don't know, but people tell me it was the biggest episode. That's just what they say. I didn't say it.
It's got to be Billy's shirt. Billy's on fire today, bro. It's got to be his shirt.
Billy is on fire today.
It's got to be his 90s shirt. No, it was phenomenal, bro. And so we give a shout out to Nick, but there were so many other people that have been on our podcast since we started it that we didn't even get a chance to mention or anything like that. So I don't want you guys to feel slighted or slanted towards us just because we didn't mention you guys, but know that you guys are still in our hearts. We had you guys on the show for a reason, and that's because the work you're doing and wherever you're at in life is very important, like Saint and a whole bunch of other people. So Big Blue.
Yeah, we left a lot of people out.
Yep, Big Blue. So it's just we can go down the list, but I'm not. But I just wanted to thank you guys. That was a really sentimental episode for me and AJ and Billy, I'm sure. Especially again, like we talked about last time. We've never done anything like this before. I mean, we've been going now for 2+ years now, but when we started, we had never been doing anything like this. So it's been a fun
101, baby. We are Dalmatians coming in hot.
Yeah, we are now at 101, and so I want you guys to know we're going to continue to bring you guys the same great content that we've always done with great guests and great topics. And so appreciate that. Thanks for sticking with us, and we are going to continue this conversation going forward. So that being said, go ahead.
How's things in Cali, by the way?
Nothing's burning.
Well, there is a fire.
Well, okay, not okay.
Cali always on fire.
So
some portion of Cali is just always on fire.
The housing prices are just ridiculous.
That's everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, more specifically in places like Cali, Boston, whatever.
Yep. Caitlyn Jenner wants to run for governor.
How's that going? Is that happening?
I don't know. She makes a lot of good points, though.
Yeah,
I was about to say because Billy had a Caitlyn Jenner hat on the other day. I don't know if y'all seen that.
I'm about to buy one.
See? But I don't think Newsom is going to get recalled though.
Well, they have to vote on it, right? And the vote's going to happen.
The vote's going to happen.
Who's going to vote for him?
But what I'm saying though is that I've been looking at a lot of the polls, and they just been saying, well, and you can take polls with a grain of salt, but a lot of the popularity that was there to get him recalled is now starting to flip. And I think partly of that is because now California's starting to open, which that kind of opens up a whole nother can of worms for me.
Yeah, but he's doing that literally because of the recall. So
well, we all know that.
How many people are really thinking, oh, this is so much better because of Gavin? Who's thinking that?
But think about it, though. How many people listen to a lot of the nonsense out there and involve law enforcement or not? And this kind of brings up a good topic. So stand by. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody, and the person I was having the conversation with is, legitimately good people. Actually, he's family. I'm not gonna say no names, but he's family. And we were having it was a really good debate. at my house, and my mom was there, my sister, my wife, everybody was there. And it was kind of brought me back to the old days because I'm getting loud. They're all making fun of me because I always get loud. You know how black folks do. We get all loud, start clapping hands, get all animated and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got some real strong opinions about that.
I told you. So anyways, we're having this debate, and so it's about law enforcement, and all of his arguments that he's telling me, it literally sounded like it came straight from somebody's social media page as an influencer, i.e. Sean King or whatever like that. So some of the stuff like, well, why do you guys got to wear all this militarized equipment? And I'm like, okay, that sounds like it came straight from something you've heard. And no knock on my cousin, but what I realize is like in his mind, these are things that he legitimately believes to be true based off of what he hears and sees. But it, in all reality, is not factual simply because he hasn't gone to the source of where he can get truthful, rightful information from. And so what I'm getting at is, it's sad, but a lot of, going back to the whole point we were talking about the governor and what people think and what people don't think, or, you know, Newsom opening up the state of California, so now people are, you know, starting to be in support of him again. People really don't know what they don't know, and what they see or hear from somebody that they believe to be credible will now almost concrete their opinions on certain topics and opinions, even if it's false. Because there were a lot of things that I brought up during that conversation that I was able to say on a factual basis, like, this is what's true. And, you know, praise God, my cousin, he's good people, and he was actually able to shift his viewpoints on certain things. And I'm not saying he's pro law enforcement or nothing like that anymore or now, but he was able to shift his thinking a little bit. So how many more people are out there like right now that get information from an influencer, and because this person has over 1 million followers, believe that to be word is bond? So I actually made a tweet post, and I'll get to you right now, AJ. I made a tweet this morning that said exactly this. It says, your following doesn't equate to your experience. Your experience equates to your experience. Who do you follow that gives you woke knowledge based on their lack of experience? Time to consolidate. And then in the captions, what I said was, I've been meditating on the word consolidation lately. One of the things that came to mind was, before I became a police officer, I used to listen to a lot of opinions about law enforcement from people who had no experience in law enforcement. Now that I know what I know about law enforcement, I've realized there are so many people that are being led astray, like I was, by people who prey upon our lack of knowledge to capitalize on their own agenda. Pick and choose your following wisely, and let's consolidate together. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like all these people leading people astray just because they don't know. It's almost like they're preying upon them because they don't know.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, I hate to say this, but I feel like a majority of people nowadays, or maybe like a majority of like certain age groups, think that way, or don't. I don't know how to say that, right? Like, are basically like exactly what you're saying. Like, they see something on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or, you know, TikTok or, you know, whatever, and they just run with it. The concerning part for me is they don't just run with it, but they passionately run with it. That's the concerning part for me. Like, there are a few things in life I'm passionate about. Those things in which I'm passionate about, I'm also very knowledgeable about. And I have a legitimate reason to be passionate about it. And it's just, I don't know, it's alarming to see, you know, so many people that will, you know, see a video online or see a picture online with a very decisive or just flat out incorrect caption or audio caption, and people will just run with it. Like they'll share it and be like, you know, we got to do X, Y, and Z to stop this. And it's damaging, right? I mean, you know, we've seen it. We've seen the law enforcement videos, the use of force videos. You know, more recently there was one out in my neck of the woods, right? And it's just like, by the time the facts come out, like the damage is already done, because there's so many people who refuse to step out of their comfort zone and receive facts, that they just rather stick with what they were initially told to think. And it's just like, man, that's scary to me.
Yeah. And not only that, so you talk about, you know, opinions being formed and shaped based off of somebody's, you know, clout or following and stuff like that. But what about laws changing? There's a lot of laws that are changing and policies that are changing right now that we've talked about before, that are geared or based off of the emotions of how people feel about a certain situation. And so on one hand, it's damaging the profession of law enforcement because it's tying our hands to do some of the things that were put in place to do our job efficiently. Now, granted, there are certain things that have changed in law enforcement that needed to be changed. There, I think law enforcement in many ways can use a facelift because there are certain practices and protocols that are outdated. So on one hand, it's good that we're changing or reevaluating some of the practices and protocols that we have. But on another hand, like I said, you're tying the hands of people out there to do the job the right way and do it effectively. And who gets punished by that? It's not just law enforcement. I think sometimes people just look at it as just being law enforcement that's being punished and affected by it, but it's not. It's the people in our communities. You can look at New York City, Washington, Oregon, Minnesota, all these places that really push these agendas to defund, or even here in LA, to defund the police. They are all being affected by these rash decisions in a negative way. Crime is skyrocketed. It's crazy. The homicide rates have gone up. The physical assaults have gone up. And I love how some of these same people, I just had an argument, or not an argument, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he was telling me about an argument that he was involved in. And he was saying that he brought the same stuff that I'm bringing up now to this person. And this person went on to say, well, that's just because of COVID-19 and people being with each other. Yeah. And I was like, but you see how it's funny how that always happens, how they always want to pin it on something else, when in the reality is like, no, it's a direct correlation of tying the hands of police officers. You know what I mean? And this is coming from somebody who, again, I've told you 100 times over that I wasn't always a fan of police officers. And so if this is the case, that's where we have to really start questioning what we're listening to, what we're learning, or who we're learning from, because they are pushing these agendas that are negatively impacting you. And so just because you don't necessarily see it every day, day in, day out, because nobody's broken into your home yet, nobody's broken into your car yet, nobody's tried to hit or kidnap you yet, doesn't mean you're not going to be affected at some point in time. I'll give you a true story. This literally, and this happened recently to me. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was at work and I got one of my bosses, the chief of police, mind you, was coming into the station, and he said, hey, he called in the dispatch. He said, hey, have some officers come out here and talk to this lady out here, because I guess some guy pulled up with this lady who refused to get out of his car. And so we were like, no problem, chief. Like, we ain't about to have the chief get his hands dirty. We got this. Go ahead, chief. You do what you do, chief. So chief went inside. We come out there, and so we start dealing with this lady. Now, this lady wasn't getting out of the car. She seemed like she was definitely kind of crazy. You know what I mean? So we were able to convince her to get out of the car. The guy took off. I think she was a prostitute. I think that's how she ended up in that situation in the first place, or how he ended up in that situation in the first place. But anyways, he took off once we got out of the car, but we had got called on her earlier on in the day. And so we knew, like, hey, we got to figure out something. Like, we got to get her out of the city, because if we don't get her out of the city, we're just going to keep getting calls on her. And you probably could relate to this, AJ. So long story short, you can tell she used drugs. She was exhibiting signs and symptoms of a person that's been under the influence. So we did a under the influence evaluation on her and determined she was under the influence of drugs. So we handcuff her, take her to jail. We get, and mind you, when we take her to jail, bro, she is tripping. She's on a good one. She's in the back seat, doing, trying to do somersaults, trying to put her hands in front of her, like standing up in the back seat of our police car. So when we go to remove her, she legitimately like puts her feet on the edge of the door, so like we can't take her out. And so like now we have to grab her feet. And so I grab one and my partner goes to grab the other, and she kicks my partner in the head and shoulder area. And so we remain cool, calm, and collected. And so we were able to successfully get her out. We walk her into the jail, and she ended up being a pre-book. Now, if you don't know what a pre-book is, we got down to the jail, and the nurse is down there like, oh, her heart rate is too high, so you guys got to take her back to the hospital. So we're like, are you serious?
Refusal.
So what a pre-book is their refusal to book because of their medical condition. They got to get checked out by a doctor first, and that's the worst, because usually when you have to do a pre-book on somebody, they're either combative, somebody that smells really bad, whatever it is. So that just means it's going to extend your time with them. You're stuck with them for a while. So we're like, all right, whatever. So we take her to the hospital, and bro, she's in the hospital tripping, like going off. She was doing some very provocative stuff to herself. I'll just leave it at that. In front of everybody. It was just very we were like, man, we're so ready for this to be done with. So anyways, they end up taking her back later. We got off, somebody else transported her down there. And so it was crazy. So by us being proactive and doing under the influence evaluation on her, it got her out of the city and stopped some problems. And this is how I have proof of that. 3 weeks later, so last week, my partner hits me up. He's like, hey, bro, did you hear about that girl that you guys arrested a couple weeks ago? I'm like, no, what happened? So he shows me an article. This same chick stabbed a lady in another city because, and this is how it happened. This one mom was out with her kids. And as the mom's out with her kids, she's just out hanging out with her kids or whatever. The crazy lady that we dealt with, she's staring at the kids. So the mom was like, hey, let's go. And so the crazy lady's like, no, where are you going with my daughter? Where are you going with my daughter? So the mom is like, this lady's tripping, like, come on, kids, we need to go. She's like, you better not leave my daughter. You better not leave my daughter. So as the mom gets the kids to leave, the crazy lady goes up to her and stabs her in her torso. So the crazy lady ended up getting arrested for attempted murder. But the fact of the matter is that my point in all of this is that if we are not allowed to go out there and be proactive and be able to take people to jail and try to keep them in jail for a while, you as the innocent person at home are going to be affected by a lot of these crimes that are occurring. And I don't know the lady that was stabbed. For all I know, she can be pro law enforcement and pro this, but for all I know, she could be one of those people that's like, oh, defund the police, defund this and all the other stuff. And it's a direct correlation when our hands are tied, when we can't do the business as we're supposed to. And so all these people that are saying these things are ultimately going to be affected. But why does it happen? Because it happens based on their opinions or their belief in other people's opinions.
I think that that's just a prime example of why everyone should be forced to, or required to do a ride along with a police officer, like before they get their license or, before they turn 18, whatever, right? Like you should have to do a ride along with a police officer just so you understand what like implementing certain laws or rules and regulations would do or could do. Forces you to pose a question. And it's like, I understand that, we should give the people what they want, right? Like we're public servants, right? Like we should serve the public. But what if what they want is harmful to themselves and they don't know it?
Yeah. No, you're
like, where do we draw that line? What if they're like, well, the fire's not that hot. Just let me stick my hand in. And you're like, no, it's going to burn you. You don't want to do that. It's just like, well, I read online that you could, dip your hand in water immediately afterwards and it won't hurt. And you're just like, that's not going to work. Yeah. Like at what point are you just like, okay, like.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think there's a certain place where we have to draw the line. I'm looking at an article right now. And I saw I think this came out 4 days ago. It says, breaking news, Baltimore Spending Board approves a $28 million increase in police funding following a large surge in crime. Baltimore City Council defunded the police department by $22 million last June following the George Floyd stuff. So you see how it's funny to me is like
New York
has done the same thing. There's a few states that are actually giving more money back to and I actually called this. I called it and said that the pendulum will swing back. And I said, if you're in law enforcement, just hold on. It's going to swing back. And when it swings back, we are going to get more than what we had before as law enforcement. I truly believe that. I still believe it. And we're starting to see it. Here's why, is because the people in the communities are now starting to be so negatively impacted by our hands-off approach that they are realizing that no, police actually, we do need police. And so now let's give them more resources. I also want to bring up, Leon reached out to me the other day, and I'm actually just going to play the video real quick. And I think this will be a good discussion. And I think we can actually talk about, this whole idea. I'm going to play the audio of it. I don't think you need to see it, but I'm going to go ahead and play this.
I respect the dignity of the public safety agent. Yes. But can you imagine if the size of the police department was the size of the fire department? And just like firefighters only show up to put out a fire, police officers only show up to address armed violent crime. Firefighters used to be called out to get cats out the tree. Yeah. But then they hired some pet control people. Because they understood, man, that's not a good use of that firefighter's time. I respect.
So he asked me the question, what were my thoughts about that? And so I told him this, and I think this would be a good discussion. The whole notion of police officers becoming like firefighters. I said, that is a concept that sounds beautiful, bro. It sounds amazing. I mean, I would love, what police officer wouldn't want to be like a firefighter? You know what I mean? You just respond to the crazy calls for service, and then while you're not responding there, you're at the fire station or police station just chilling, watching movies, and you just go out for that stuff. There's a few things that we have to address. One is that crime occurs a lot more than some of these medical issues occur that calls for a fire department or EMS to come out. Not saying they don't happen a lot. No, they happen all the time. Medical emergencies happen all the time. But when we talk about crime is always occurring. You can look at our call logs and see how many calls for service we are getting as police officers in reference some type of disturbance going on all the time. I mean, so much so, we talk about law enforcement agencies being understaffed right now is because we're trying to reflect the call volume that we get, and we just can't keep up. So that's one thing. The second thing is think about this. How do you decide what calls police officers go on and what calls we don't go on? How many times, AJ, have you gone on a call for service and it ended up being something completely different than what it came out as?
Oh, all the time.
All the time, right? I just posted a video yesterday. Officer's going to domestic violence and he's getting rammed, and the next thing he knows, he's being ambushed. We go on stuff all the time that it comes out as like, we've gone on calls before where it seemed like a big nothing. Like, it comes out, let me just say, like a 44, which for us, that's a petty theft. Comes out as a petty theft. Noise complaint investigation. You get there and it ends up being some big old crazy domestic violence dispute or some type of assault with a deadly weapon or an attempted murder. So if we only responded to calls that warranted police officer presence, how many calls are going to get lost in the shuffle, or how many people are going to fall victim or die if law enforcement can't get there to resolve that in a quick manner? Secondly is, the difference between firefighters and police officers is that firefighters have a job that majority of the time allows them to be reactive, meaning a fire starts, they go put it out.
Look what I just wrote down.
There
proactive
it is.
versus reactive.
There it is. So firefighters have a job that majority of the time allows them to be reactive as opposed to being proactive. Meaning if a fire gets started, they go and put it out. If somebody's having a heart attack, they respond and run to medical emergencies. Where officers, I just described a situation of us being proactive with this female, and even though it was a call, hypothetically, the proactive approach for us was, hey, we determined she's under the influence of a drug, and now let's take her to jail. I.e., now we've prevented something from occurring later. That was proactive on our part in seeing what we can do to stop this problem from occurring later. The last thing I'm gonna say before I turn it over to AJ is, even firefighters in a certain way are proactive. So that whole idea that firefighters sit back and chill and wait to respond, they're also proactive in a different way. But they're proactive in, how many times have we seen firefighters go out and educate people on what to do in the event of an earthquake? How many times have we gone out there and seen firefighters going out there telling people what to do to prevent fires in your house? So they are going out there. Exactly. They're educating people so that way they can prevent fires. How many times have we seen people go out into the forest and try to get rid of all the brush and all the other stuff? Why are they getting rid of the brush in the forest? So that way they can be proactive in preventing the fires. So what that looks like in law enforcement, when we're proactive, we do traffic stops in order to take drugs off the streets to what? Prevent somebody from overdosing, to prevent somebody from getting killed over the sale of drugs. Why do we go out there and do, proactive, pedestrian checks? So that way we can stop that guy that's walking to another person's house to do a drive-by or a gang shooting, whatever it is. That's what proactivity is in law enforcement. So that's why law enforcement can't be like firefighters and just be reactive, because if we are reactive to everything, how many other things are we going to miss in the shuffle just being like firefighters? Go ahead, AJ.
I mean, yeah, you basically said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I even wrote down proactive versus reactive, before you even got to that point. But that logic of let's see and use police or police officers as a whole is extremely flawed. And it should be the opposite. Like, it should be, let's get more police officers out in the community. to be proactive and also have officers well equipped and ready on standby to be reactive. And it's just frustrating for me because, you know, I'm from the hood, right? Like, I'm from the inner city. Like, I know what it's like to be afraid to leave your apartment complex at a certain time of night, or to walk to the corner store to get a thing of milk or a carton of eggs for your mom. And the dope boys on the corner asking you like, oh, where you from? What set you from? You got the wrong color on. Like, you know, like, I know what it's like to go to a school that's been shot up, that, you know, live, camera crews are filming our football games and people are getting shot with like fully automatic weapons, right? Transition into my professional life. Like, I work the inner city. Like, I never left, right? Like I just transitioned into a different field. And hearing things like this is frustrating for me because these people have no idea what real life is like, right? Like, the people who live in these communities want more police officers. It's the exact opposite of what we're being told and constantly being fed. Like, these single grandmothers who have lived in this house for their entire life, and they live in this house by themselves, want to see police officers patrolling down their streets and walking down the streets and on bikes down their streets because they're tired of the violence. They're tired of their cars being broken into. They're tired of their house being broken into. They're scared to go to church because they know the dope boys on the corner are going to see her get into her car and go to church and then break into their house. Mm-hmm. But this logic of, well, what can we do to see less police officers? And they almost try to spin it like it's a favor, right? Like, oh yeah, well, let's make police officers like firefighters. They'll love that. No, we won't. You know why we won't? Because we care about the community we serve, and we see how destructive your actions and your logic and the laws and rules that you're trying to pass. We see how destructive that is going to be to that community we love so dearly. Like, stuff like that gets me going like you would not believe. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with somebody that's lived in an extremely poverty infested area, an extremely underserviced area, and you know who they love more than anybody? The police, because we're the ones bringing hope into these communities. We're the ones there to protect them. We're the ones that they know that they could call. But what are we constantly being fed over and over and over again? You're not welcome in this community. This community doesn't want you. No, this community doesn't want you. You're the one that swoops in here and takes pictures with families and kisses babies and then goes back to your gated community that has 24-hour protection, or goes back into the suburbs or the part of the city that's not affected by exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
That's the person that's not welcome in this area.
Exactly.
You about to get me going, man. Like,
nah,
this stuff
please.
pisses me off, man. Like, this is the reason why our country is so divided right now. And you have officers like myself and officers like Ryan who are trying to stay in the middle and go, hey, look, we see some logic over here. We see some logic over here. We are in the middle, right? We're in the field. We're minorities as well, so we understand that. Hear us out. And it's like people are so brainwashed. It's like, well, I have to pick a side. I have to pick A or B. And it's like, no, the answer is C. You're going to pick wrong. You might not pay for it now, but you will eventually.
Yep. And, you know, and I want to be clear, too. Like, the person that said, because I don't know that guy that said it, but I can tell you, like, he legitimately, I don't think he's probably not a bad guy at all. But that's what happens when you don't have knowledge about the profession. And so you in your mind, you think you're saying something that is nice. You think you're saying something that can provide a good solution to the community. And I actually applaud the fact that you're actually out there trying to figure out what other solutions we can bring to some of these problems. But you can't do that absent of any knowledge into the profession and why we do what we do. This is coming from somebody who was in that boat, who didn't understand law enforcement, who didn't like law enforcement. And so now that I see it differently, I made another post the other day, and I'm gonna bring this up. Just because, again, it's right on line with the lines what we're saying. I said, random thought. If you want to be on police accountability boards or review police decisions made, you should be required to volunteer your time on ride-alongs and or Citizens Academy before you're qualified to do so. That is for a reason, because in order for you to make these judgment calls or have a little bit more understanding before you make that judgment call, understand why that judgment call was made on behalf of the officer or whoever it is. And so I don't want people to go out there and crucify crucify this person that just said this stuff about firefighters, because like I said, he may legitimately in his heart believe that he's actually rendering up some legitimate advice or, you know, thoughts behind how we can improve things. But again, before we can do things like that, go out there and do as much research as you can, get involved, and then come back and say, okay, this is what I think we could potentially do, and let's talk about it. Let's not make it word is bond. Okay, we're going to go out there and implement it today. Let's just talk about it together. You know, I kind of, when you talk about the sides and how everybody has to pick and choose a side, it almost reminds me of, you know, a married couple that is divorced and has children together. And as those kids grow older, what starts to happen is kids get smart. And when they get smart, they realize how they can manipulate a system. And so when mom and dad are no longer together, when that kid goes to mom's house or dad's house, they start to see who they can get away with more at that house. So for example, I'm gonna go to mom's house because I know mom lets me go out whenever. She don't really be tripping. Mom is really more so worried about me being my friend. And so when I go to dad's house, dad be shutting it down and dad don't play that. And so I don't like coming to dad's house because he don't let me get away with nothing. So what does he start to do? He starts to pit the two against each other even more so, therefore they can get what they want. Well, what do you think criminals are trying to do? They try to pit the community and law enforcement against each other so what? They can get what they want. If we can get more officers out of the streets from these inner city neighborhoods, what does that allow me to do as a criminal? It allows me to get away with a lot more. It allows me to go in there and just really take advantage and victimize everybody in the community because the community doesn't want them there in the first place. And that's what this reminds me of. And so that's what we got to be careful of doing, is being pitted against each other for the sake of agendas. And that's why I go back to what we started this conversation on. These people that have these large platforms that are giving you all this negative information about law enforcement, really ask yourself the question, what is their ultimate agenda? Because they can disguise it as fine wine. They can disguise it as honey. Oh, we want to do good for the community. Only way we can do good for the community is by getting these, you know, devilish law enforcement officers out of the streets because they are demonizing our community. They are killing our own people. They're doing this, they're doing that. No, we are killing each other more than these police officers are doing. We are doing this to ourselves. And so really go back and try to, you know, fine tune and see what their ultimate agenda is before you start jumping on their bandwagon.
Yeah, you about to get me going, man. I don't want to go off on like some
do.
deep end, man.
Please
but no,
do.
You're right, man. So I'll just ask you this, because you know my mind is racing at a million miles per hour right now. Who does the responsibility fall on? The person who posts their idea, or the people who listen?
So I think, that's a good one. Me personally, man, that's hard.
That's what I'm. And the reason I ask is because, you know, like, you know, you played that clip, and if I heard correctly, it almost was posed as a question, right? Like he or she wasn't saying that this is what it should be.
Yeah.
They were more so like, well, what if, right? But my thing is, we live in a society where we know people will blindly listen to you, right? Like, you know, and I hope I don't like upset anyone by this, but like, I know I could get on my Instagram, my Facebook, my TikTok, and I could say something and there'll be a good amount of people who will hear it. They won't do any research. They'll just run with it, right? The same thing with you, and the same thing with you listening to this, right? Like if you have a social media platform or following in any aspect of your life, you could say something and there'll probably be at least one person who will hear what you said and run with it. So when you play a clip like that, I am somewhat frustrated with the person who put that out there. Like, I understand that it was a question and you may not have, you know, put it out there to be divisive, or, you know, you might have thought that, you know, it will work. But these are conversations that maybe we should have in private, right? Like maybe you should reach out to a police officer or reach out to someone that you trust and have these conversations before you put it out there on social media, because there are people out there who are going to just listen and go, that's right. Yeah, police officers should be like firefighters and be responsive. And then a year, you know, I was going to say 10 years originally, but a year, 6 months from now, when crime is at an all-time high and your car's stolen or you got shot walking down the street, like by then it's too late, right? Like now we got to go back and be even more aggressive than we were before to help clean the streets up. So, you know, I asked that question on purpose because I knew it would be a hard one to answer, and my answer to that is both, right? Like, like it falls on the person who posted, who has a social media following, because you know dang well that people are gonna listen and follow, but then it falls on you as the follower as well, right? Like you have an obligation to yourself, right? Like, do you not owe yourself the obligation to do that research and to, you know, do your due diligence before running with these ideas or these thoughts?
But you kind of answered it. It comes to personal responsibility on the person posting and the person listening. So I think it can't be, I don't think the blame is on one more than the other. So it needs to be personal responsibility on both sides.
And that also, but it kind of, it's like a rabbit hole now, because we've gone down the rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is, like, it's bigger than just law enforcement. Like, you look at society right now when we talk about COVID.
Sure.
Think about COVID.
Sure.
Like
gas prices, gas right now is a perfect example.
But one of the things real quick about COVID is that we have created a society that we need the right people to deliver a message because they have a following, because we know the people listening or following them will listen to it just because of who posted it. And so, you know, society has tried to take your own deductive reasoning or critical thinking out of every decision we make. For example, like if a person feels strongly about getting vaccinated, great. If a person feels strongly against getting vaccinated, great. But what we've done is we pit the two against each other. Oh, you're not vaccinated? Oh, I can't talk to you. Oh, you are vaccinated? Oh, I can't talk to you. Same thing with masks. Oh man, like you look at if you're one of those persons that is all about wearing a mask and you see a person not wearing a mask, you look at the other person sideways. If you're a person that is like, no, man, I'm good, I'm not trying to wear a mask, and the other person wears a mask is looking at you sideways, it's like you're against each other. And that's because we have all of these people out there pushing these agenda, forcing you to think one way or the other. And if you don't think that way, then you're wrong. That's why I say, man, they need to stay away from a lot of this stuff. I mean, I think McDonald's is now putting syringes on like a picture of a syringe for the vaccination on the fries container.
What?
Yeah. And so my thing on that is like, but see that, but it angers me.
Hey, it's a private business, you know.
But see, that angers me because now it's like, so now you're pushing this to make it seem like if you don't do this, then you're wrong. And I don't like that. Like, there's just certain things we shouldn't play with, and that's one of them. Like, you are now taking the free thinking away from people, and some people are gonna be like, "Oh, well, you sound like hypocritical now," because, you know, on one end you're saying we shouldn't think one way or the other, but I'm saying is like, I'm one of those guys. I'm not going to crucify you for the way you think or whatever. You know what I mean? But just don't go out there and, you know, don't go out there and push your type of agenda on people that aren't going to. Does that make sense? Like, do their own research.
And this is going to sound like very, like, you know, cliche or like, oh, of course you would say that. But like, I think our podcast is a perfect example, right? Like, we're willing to first and foremost tell every single one of our listeners, like, hey, do your research, right? Like, anything that we say, anything that we bring up, like, feel free to do your research. Not only that, but we're bringing in different mindsets and then having conversations with them to help form our opinions, right? Like, I think that's the beauty behind like what we do here on the podcast. And I just feel like if everyone had that logic, we would be so much further than we are now, right? Like, if for every negative thing about law enforcement you've seen, maybe you went out and you talked to a police officer, stop a police officer, you know, you see him driving down the street, stopped at a red light. hey, would you mind pulling over? I want to talk to you about this post I just seen. You never know what insight you might walk away. And on the flip side, right? Like everything you hear that's positive about law enforcement, or everything that you hear about, it's like negative about the community, right? Like, oh, this community is at war with this community. As a police officer, like maybe you should do your research. Maybe you should get out of your car and start talking to community members. Like, hey, I seen this post, or I read this article. Like, can you maybe give me some insight, because I might be missing something. You never know what insight you might have, right? And that's the beauty of like our podcast, is like we're willing to bring in people and have like hard conversations, or maybe we just don't have that insight and we want that insight. So we bring that person in to kind of help us form those opinions. So I don't know, man. It's frustrating because it's good and bad at the same time, right? So like prior to social media, we relied on like these large corporations who had like billions of dollars to tell us what to think, right? And the masses believed it because those were the news networks we had. So it's good that we have the capability to get information out there, but it's bad because like we've created a generation of people who are almost mindless,
a lazy generation.
And and I hate to say it like that, man. I mean, but there's there's documentaries on this stuff, man. Like how Facebook can easily sway on how you feel about something, right? Like target advertising is a perfect example of it. My buddy just started a lawn care company. This is a 100% true, not exaggerate in the slightest bit story. My buddy started a lawn care company. He texted me about it. All right, I didn't see it on social media, none of that. He texted me, hey, I'm starting this lawn care company. What brand zero turn do you think I should get? So I call him. I'm like, oh, my homeboy got a zero turn for sale right now. Let me call him up. So I made probably 5 to 6 phone calls within 30 minutes. And I'm talking about lawn care stuff. When I got on Facebook, you know what all of my ads were? John Deere, Craftsman, Weed Whackers. Like, I was just like, this is crazy. But it just goes to show, right? Like even that bit of like target advertisement can manipulate what I think, right? Because prior to this, I could have been like, oh, I'm a Craftsman guy. Oh, that John Deere looked nice though. It's bright and green. And it's got the colors and it's flashing. It's on every page of Facebook. Like I got to get a John Deere now. So to think that they're not doing that with something much deeper and much powerful than items for sale, you're definitely doing yourself a disservice.
I get what you're saying, but I almost feel like we're arguing for how the government's wanting to regulate and ban people, and hey, we need to kind of moderate and go through this speech and see what we allow. Like I get what you're saying, but like no matter how many Biden ads that come on my Facebook, like it's not going to change my mind. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like people.
I don't know about that.
Hopefully, people just start seeing this. Like you need to take personal responsibility and do the research. Like don't just blindly follow things. But I don't blame Facebook for like. I don't think it's like a social media's fault. I think it's the person's fault for just blindly being a sheep.
I think this is where I think it's social media's fault. I like this. This is a good discussion for all of us.
This is good. Yeah,
the reason I think it's social media's fault in a sense is because I've seen social media blacklist people that doesn't fit their agenda.
No, I know they shouldn't be blacklisting that.
So that's where I think it's social media's fault. If you want, if you want to allow people to post whatever they want from their side, I'm all about it. Because in agreement with what Billy's saying is like, yeah, as long as it's our responsibility to do our own research and figure out how we want to feel about it. So, you know, and unfortunately with that, human beings are going to be human beings. Human nature is human nature. You're going to have people that want to take advantage of others for the sake of their agendas or whatever to, you know, fill their pocketbooks. But at the same time, what I don't like is how I know for a fact that social media they'll shadow ban accounts or they'll get rid of accounts. I was just for example,
my Facebook, perfect example.
Your Facebook, man. I had a post removed from TikTok yesterday. That's the exact same post that's on Instagram, but I posted it on TikTok, which was about the officer being ambushed, and so they removed it for the sake of, you know, I don't know, violence or whatever. But yet they allow young underage girls to post all these, you know, half naked pictures or videos of themselves, but yet that's not regulated, right? So my thing is like, if it's gonna be open, let it be open, but don't pick and choose for me of what is good for me.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't want someone I don't know up high in power deciding what I can and cannot see.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. What do you think, AJ?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But once again, I put blame across the board. I put blame on social media as well, right? Like they need to know that the power that they have and the way that they use that power, right? Like,
oh yeah, I've said from day one that. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I get that you're a private business, right? Like Facebook is a private business. Like I get it. Like Mark Zuckerberg should be able to do what he wants when he wants to do it. But at this point, like you have influence.
Yep.
Like influence, like all capital letters. Like there has to be some sort of responsibility that goes with that. And like exactly what you said, Ryan, like how easy is it to, deactivate a couple Facebooks and, shadow, we're not going to stop you from posting because that's too obvious, but maybe we'll stop the amount of people who come across your post. And it happens, right? Like, because it doesn't fit our agenda or whatever I'm being paid to push right now. That's my issue with social media. And on the flip side, right? Like we as people need to be well aware of what's going on as well, right? Like we need to get our sources of information from multiple sources. And
I've said from day one,
across the board.
I've said from day one, with influence comes responsibility, and not a lot of people are taking that responsible. And so, let's end it on this note: is how do we be better? And so I'll say this is my personal thought on how we be better, and then you guys can chime in. I think that you can't be too far left or you can't be too far right. It's okay to be left. It's okay to be right, but don't be on the far extreme. Don't be so far on the extreme side that you forgot what it looks like in the middle. You know what I mean? I think that you should be left, but close enough to where you can still feel the middle. You could be right, but you should still be close enough to feel the middle. And I think right now what we have is people that are too far left or too far right. And I've called people out, even in my family and vice versa, is like, you're so far left that no matter what I tell you that comes out of my mouth, that's in opposition to what you have to say. You're not going to hear me because you are so far left and you don't want to hear nothing from the right side. And it's the same thing from the right side of folks. It's like you are so far right now that you won't even begin to try to understand and hear anything that comes from the left. And so like kind of going back to what you said earlier, AJ, is like that's kind of our example is this podcast. We've had people come in from the opposite side of what we believe in on this podcast, and trust me, we heard about it, but that's what helps us stay like neutral. That's what helps us stay relevant, is to hear why these people feel that way. Because anytime somebody says something that I don't agree with, I always try to go back, okay, well, why does this person feel that way? Because if you can get to the why, then you may not necessarily agree with them, but you can understand a little bit more why they got to that conclusion. And therefore, it gives you a little bit more insight into you delivering your factual opinion to them based on facts. But at least what you've done first is you've empathized with them. A lot of times we don't even want to hear the why. They just say some nonsense and it's like, oh, no, I don't agree. I don't get down with that. But at least just hear the why. And we're all guilty of it. I'm not going to sit here and say I do that every single time. There's times as people will come across and say some nonsense to me and I'm like, yeah, negative. I'm not hearing none of that. And so we're all guilty of it, but that doesn't mean I'm necessarily right just because I do it. It means I'm sure I could have been better at trying to hear why they feel that way. And then once I hear why they feel that way, then once I give them my opinion, and if they still feel that same way, then that's different. But at least I gave them the opportunity, or they gave me the opportunity to hear me out. And I think that's how we get better. What do you guys think?
I'll say this. Prioritize your protection. Like just remember that, like throughout your journey in life. And that's something that like I constantly remind myself of, is like, and what that looks like for me is like every now and then I'll unplug from social media. Every now and then, like I'll remove myself from somebody that's like constantly feeding me like the same type of information over and over again. The negative person in your life, right? Like you have to like prioritize your protection, meaning like you have to protect yourself. Like in order, right? If the plane is going down, the mask come down. What does it say? Put yours on first, because you can't help others unless you got that on you, right? Like prioritize your protection. Like you have to like make that a priority in your life. So like maybe that looks like disconnecting from social media for a few months, a year, right? Until you feel like you've been protected from it. Maybe that looks like cutting out the people, or not even cutting out, but just like, distancing yourself for a short time from the people who are like constantly feeding you that extreme viewpoint over and over and over again. So for me, it's worked. It's worked out for me. So that's my piece of advice for that.
What do you think, Billy?
kind of going off of what Ryan was talking about, like hearing someone's why. For me, I need to be able to give I don't want to just give statements on what I believe, like cookie cutter statements. I need to be able to back up what I believe with why I believe it. So I've noticed that sometimes I'm like, yeah, I believe that. And then I think to myself, well, could I explain to someone why I believe that? I'm like, no, I couldn't. So I need to do my research and know the thought process that got me to my belief, if that's making any sense.
That's good.
So we should all be able to do that, not just make a statement. Yeah, political views is this. Well, okay, why? Like, how did you get there? I want to be able to explain myself.
It's funny. We actually just talked about this on the Common Hero Project.
Explain that shirt, Billy.
We actually just talked about this. I think it was issue 2 of the Common Hero Project of listening to people. And in that issue we released, it really just talked about how do you listen to people. And so one of the things I always try to do is, even especially with people that are big naysayers of law enforcement, is they'll tell me whatever they tell me. And a lot of times it's not what I want to hear. It's stupid. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But there's too many people right now, and we can go on social media right now and see these people that I'm talking about, the people that have the opposite opinion of what that person said, they'll be like, oh, you freaking sound stupid. Are you freaking kidding me? Or you're ignorant, or this is that. What I do is I'm like, okay, I can try to understand where you're coming from, or I can kind of see where you would have questions or understand that. But this is what the reality is, or this is what I've learned based on my own experience. And guaranteed, I'm always going to get a better response that way than the way of, oh man, you're freaking stupid. Why would you even say that? Everybody knows that's not true. That right there is a prime example of how you do it. Is just that little bit of saying, okay, I could try to understand where you might feel that way. That's empathy. That is showing, okay, you know what? I'm trying to hear what you're saying. So now at least lets that person know, okay, he's listening to me. And then you can return. But when you just come out with some negative stuff off the jump, it's not going to work. And so I think that's how we all get better. And, I think this was good for people. And if you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself the question, are you somebody that is so far right that you won't even listen to a person that's on the left? Or are you a person listening to this? Are you so far left that you won't even begin to hear somebody from the far right or from the right? And so if you are one of those people, I challenge you this week to, anytime you're listening or talking to somebody, try to listen to them, genuinely listen to them, and respond with something that's to the effect of, okay, I can try to understand that, or okay, I see where you're coming from, and then respond, as opposed to writing them off right away. And if that conversation doesn't go differently than it has in the past, then maybe I'm wrong. But I guarantee you, if you do that, you will see the changes that we're talking about. And if you don't, and then the other challenges for you is, some of you guys aren't going to have a conversation with anybody that views something differently than you this week. And so my challenge is to go out there and find somebody that you know is in opposition to you and try to have a dialogue with them. That's my other challenge, is go out there, because you don't know what you don't know. And you might be surprised. Billy said something on the last episode when we talked about, what guests had impacted us the most. And when I re-listened to our podcast, I remember Billy saying that Artie really impacted his life, because when he heard something from somebody that was completely different from him, that comes from a different place from him, it really made him question his own thought process on how he viewed certain things. And so that's proof right there. That's the proof in the pudding. And so we all try to do it. So that's my challenge for you guys this week. And so that being said, I'm going to turn, I think Billy has a one has to go before we wrap it up.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah, my wife sent me a one has to go. It is food related. So I know we do a lot of food related. So if anyone has any non-food related ideas, post it on the Facebook group or DM us or something. So one has to go: bacon, tacos, donuts, or sushi.
Oh. Bacon, tacos, donuts, or sushi. Okay, I got
mine.
I got mine.
You guys go first.
I'm going with bacon. Bacon got to go.
Really?
Bro, what? No, stop.
Bacon.
Take it back.
He sound like he got like fun. No, you're not. You didn't take my advice, AJ. You should have said, "Okay, I can try to understand where you're coming from."
We don't have to listen to ignorant stuff like
because sometimes people are just flat out wrong. Like,
oh man,
boy,
yeah, bacon got to go for me, man. Don't get me wrong. I love bacon. But is bacon something that I would like just love to eat every single day? Nah, bro.
Yes, bro. The answer is always yes to bacon, bro.
Yeah.
Bacon, everything. Sushi got to go.
Oh, you tripping? You're tripping.
Sushi.
You
out
are
here.
tripping. You must not.
sushi.
You must not like sushi then.
Nah, I get down with some sushi. Not like none of the crazy stuff, but yeah, I eat some sushi.
Like poke bowls are so good.
Yeah,
I think
bomb.
that's the only reason I'm keeping sushi. And I'm
Oh,
getting rid
what?
I'm getting rid of donuts. I like actual food. Like I'm keeping the food.
Nah, bro. You can't
there's
get rid
too
of
many varieties of donuts to get
podcast,
rid
I
of.
can't
Bro,
say that,
donuts is a staple, bruh.
Yeah, too many varieties. So what, you said a poke bowl.
Yeah.
You don't know what a poke bowl is?
Here we go. What is
Oh wait, never mind.
What's
Let me pause because this is coming from the same person that didn't know what an acai bowl was.
So I'm an acai expert. First
No,
off.
here. First of all, when AJ came to Cali and I was like, "Hey, you want an acai bowl?" He was like, "Oh, what?" He was
I said an Asiago bowl.
Asiago, a Masago bowl. Oh man, so
That boy was good though.
that makes sense. So if he didn't know what a Asiago bowl was, then he definitely not gonna know what
So
a poke bowl is.
bowl.
You don't know what a poke
Break
bowl
it
is?
down.
And just so we're not embarrassed,
No.
it's poke. Just putting that out there.
You don't know what a poke bowl is?
Oh,
Poke bowl.
excuse me. What's a Pokemon bowl? Go ahead and tell me what it
A
is.
Pokemon. It's like when you go to Chipotle and you can put make your own bowl basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same concept, but just for raw
Raw
fish and
fish
stuff
is
like
the
that.
meat, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Nah, bro.
What?
You
You
sleeping
put all
on
that
it.
in the trash. That's called a trash can. That's what you do.
You sleeping
No,
on it.
Ohio will catch up eventually, man. Don't worry about it.
You sleeping on
Oh. So like what you put, like tuna? What you put in there?
So in
too,
mine-
and they're like they have like sauce on it and
it.
stuff.
I'll tell you what mine is. So I get white rice. I get half rice, half salad. I get pineapples, cilantro, onions. I do my base. I mean, as far as my protein, is all just salmon. But I do the marinated salmon. So marinated salmon, and then
Raw salmon.
bomb,
That's
bro.
sushi, man. You said you.
Oh.
So marinated salmon. So I do like 3 scoops of that. I'll do Masago, and then I'll do
Masago. What?
They even put like Cheeto dust on it sometimes.
yeah,
if you
sometimes
want.
they do.
That's-
Yeah, it's
Oh
bomb.
my
and then my sauce is
Stop
I'll do
it.
my sauce is I'll do the spicy mayo and eel sauce.
I don't know about the eel sauce, but the spicy.
Eel sauce? Oh my good. You might as well throw some raw chicken on there and just do it up.
Yeah, right. Oh man. So
okay.
we're all different on this one. Nobody got rid of
poke
tacos
bowl.
though.
Tacos are too good. Everyone loves tacos.
Yeah, no,
you never met one person that said they don't like tacos.
Taco
Tuesday.
Tuesday. So
But you definitely can't get rid of bacon either. I'm just throwing that out there.
Agreed.
yeah, whatever.
Bacon cheeseburger.
I could probably do it. I love it, but I
Speaking of
probably do
bacon
without it.
cheeseburgers, isn't it ironic that McDonald's is pushing vaccines? Like, how many people have died from heart disease and obesity? I know I'm backtracking.
They're pushing
big
back
time,
what?
but, like, come on.
Oh, vaccines. Gotcha. Yeah, I ain't hear about that.
That's not an anti-vaccine
Yeah.
statement. It's just ironic that McDonald's is
Billy
pushing
about
health
to get
stuff.
our
I don't
podcast
take it back now,
canceled.
Billy.
Billy about to get our podcast canceled.
But Billy, you just said that you don't want like us to be able to censor large businesses and what they do.
I'm not censoring them. I just think it's funny that they're putting that on there. They're like,
that-
mind
that-
your
that
health. Here's your
definitely
Big
is.
Mac.
It definitely is. But y'all said y'all like McDonald's. See?
I do.
See?
Yeah, I'm not gonna-
Burger
I mean,
King.
In
I'm not-
moderation.
Burger King for life.
I'm not gonna stop getting McDonald's fries just because they got a syringe on the car.
Gross.
So, anyways, y'all. Hey, well, this has been a good episode. It's good to start the 101st episode off with you guys. I think it was a great one. So just make sure you guys just do us a favor. Please give us a 5-star rating, 5-star review, and send those reviews. And we always read them, and we will post them up or we will read them out loud because it really truly means the world to us. So appreciate you guys doing it. Appreciate you guys subscribing to that. And then also, I've been working on a new project. I've told AJ about it. I'm sure AJ is going to be coming along soon. It's called the Common Hero Project, and that's really just working on the inside so that way we can be better on the outside. So if you're an aspiring police officer or have aspirations of being a police officer or already a police officer, make sure you guys go to commonheroproject.org and subscribe. And what it is, it's a weekly newsletter that just makes you better as a person so that way we can be better officers. And so with that being said, I think we're good on the announcements, and we will see y'all next week.
Peace.